Hello students, welcome to section 4-1, Introduction to Matrices. Now we've already covered this section before remote learning, but I wanted to refresh our memories to set the stage for the rest of the sections in this chapter because it's been quite a while. So Intro to Matrices, Organizing and Analyzing Data. A matrix, so a rectangular array of variables or constants in horizontal rows and vertical columns, usually enclosed in brackets. That's what a matrix is. A matrix can be described by its dimensions. A matrix with m rows and n columns is an m by n matrix. So you can kind of see, if you recall from before we left for remote learning, there are matrices that we can utilize in such a way where if it is a word problem, for example, which is what we're about to take a look at, you're organizing these numbers in the problem in such a way where you can see, okay, well, this is, this particular animal, and that's the column, for example, while in the other direction, the rows represent whatever else, the problem entails. In this case, it's incubation and fledgling. So let's read the problem, but kind of keep in mind a matrix is going to allow us to organize numbers in a very systematic array. So example 1, owls' eggs incubate for 30 days and their fledgling period is also 30 days. Swift's eggs incubate for 20 days and their fledgling period is 44 days. Pigeon eggs incubate for 15 days and their fledgling period is 17 days. Eggs of the king penguin incubate for 53 days and their fledgling time for a king penguin is 360 days. So it says write a 2x4 matrix to organize this information. So 2x4, that is m rows by n columns. 2 is the number of rows, so you can already see, as you can recall hopefully, that incubation, that being the row 1, and then the row 2, fledgling set of values. And there's 2 of those, of course, only. Then the 1, 2, 3, 4 column category representation, you've got owls, there's 1 column, swifts, there's 2, pigeons, 3, king penguin, 4. Those are the values that were provided in the problem. All right, an owl incubates for 30 and fledgling for 30 as well, or has that amount of time. Swifts 20 and 44, pigeons 15 and 17, king penguin 53 and 360. Just to kind of set things up, this is certainly fairly straightforward in getting the numbers from the word problem organized. Example 2, what are the dimensions of matrix A if A is equal to this, as you can see, 2x4 matrix? I won't say the numbers all the time, but this is what it is. It's a 2-row by 4-column matrix. And that's exactly how you're going to frame it and phrase it. So since a matrix, in this case, matrix A, has 2 rows and 4 columns, the dimensions of A are 2x4. I want to show you on OneNote a way that you guys can enter in your own matrix. Then I'll bounce to eventually our online graphing calculator that you guys have available to you. Let me go ahead and show you here. So OneNote matrix tools, and I'm going to make up an arbitrary matrix here just to kind of frame what we'll be doing a little bit later, setting the foundation really for it. So OneNote matrix tools, this is a page that I created, but as you can already see here, I've selected insert at the top of the screen. Once you do that, you're going to go over to the far right where it says equation. Now, if you don't have a stylus, this is probably the best way to do this. Even if you have a stylus, using the math tool, which is just to the right, isn't particularly easy unless your writing is perfect, which certainly mine isn't. So I have to practice over and over to get the depiction of the matrix just right to have the math button even accessible, frankly. Anyways, you're going to hit the equation button. And under this, it's going to ask you to type equation here. I'm going to pick structures. And under structures, you do have a matrix button. If you can see, matrix structures look something like this. You've got empty matrices, dots, which you use in different contexts, identity matrices, matrices with brackets, and then sparse matrices. Typically, we'll be using most matrices in the context of the brackets right here. That, for example, is a setup with a 2x2 matrix where you then enter the numbers accordingly. Now, as far as that tool goes, that's great if you just want to use exactly a 2x2. But I'm going to actually use a different option here. As you can see, this button or option says bracket. If I click on that, okay, you have a variety of options as well. This is my square bracket tool. That will be where you typically start from when you're entering matrices on your own. Now, please keep in mind, I'm going to be doing a really basic example here, but later when you do more complicated problems with many, many rows and columns, let's say, and a variety of not just one matrix, but many matrices, you'll still start with this most of the time if you're going to do it on your computer. If you have a graphing calculator at home, it will probably take over, frankly. Although I would argue OneNote matrix tools are even more efficient than your handheld calculator. If this was a regular classroom setting, I probably wouldn't let you use the OneNote matrix tools, but let's just take a look and see what we can do. I think this is even more powerful than students have used in the past. So I'm going to tap on this button. Now it's going to come up pretty small, so I'm going to actually enlarge it fairly much here, or quite a bit here. So I just kind of highlighted it, and I'm going to make it larger, hitting home, and then I'm going to crank up the size to probably 20. And I can always zoom in and out. All right, if I do this, if I kind of stretch my screen out a little bit, to make things larger. Okay. The best way to enter in a matrix on OneNote is as such. So let's say you have a 2x2 matrix with the first row 1, 2, but I'm going to enter in something in between the two. Otherwise, it's not going to read it appropriately. So I'm going to enter in a comma. So 1, 2, that is row 1. You've got row 1, column 1, row 2, or excuse me, row 1, column 2. So we're still in row 1. I'll say it again. Row 1, column 1, row 1, column 2. All right, if you hit enter immediately after, it bounces down to the next row. I'm going to do the same thing and just say 3, comma, 4. So this again represents row 2, but this is column 1, and this is row 2, column 2. All right, now you're not quite done with that. What we're going to go ahead and take a look at are all the tools that you can kind of utilize when you have the matrix officially in. I'm going to highlight the matrix yet again, go back to Insert, and then click on Math. This is where things get really interesting. Watch, if you hit Math, you have the option to, let's see, select an action. You could do a bunch of different things. Because this is the first section of this particular chapter that we're kind of revisiting here, I'm going to pick matrix size, keep it simple, and it does it right away for you. So it's 2 by 2, 2 rows by 2 columns. And let's see, it even allows me to drag it in. So if I want to drag that in, your answers down the road on various problems can be pasted right there if you're going to do it on OneNote. As an option, I certainly think it's good for you guys to take a look at. Okay, as far as the online graphing calculator, there is a page here that I've created. So if you guys want, and I certainly recommend it for those of you that don't have a graphing calculator, if you guys want, you can click this particular link, and it's going to take you through a process of steps. It's a Google site in which you'll be able to download it on your computer. It is a safe download. Go ahead and do that. Follow those steps. I'll be creating a separate tutorial later for any folks that are responding that they have any issues. It is a pretty easy download. You click, I think, 3 times, something like that total, and then install it. And after you install it, you'll click on the feature that opens it. Here is my version. I've actually already pinned it to the taskbar. It's called VTI 83. Here's what it looks like. So this is a great tool, obviously, for those of you that don't quite have the technology that a teacher has as far as the TI SmartView already installed. This is a pretty nice quick download, like I said, and you can do anything and everything that a graphing calculator can do normally, in your hand. So I'm going to just quickly show you guys where the matrix feature is. If I hit second, and then x inverse, it's x to the negative first. It also, if you can see just above, is in yellow, labeled matrix. If I tap that, I can edit, scrolling to the right. Let's say matrix A. If I want to make it a 2 by 2, I can enter in the 2 by 2 values. I hit enter every time. Make sure you do that, or tap, right or down as you go through, and then 3 and 4. Now that is as simple as, just how you can enter in values into this particular matrix option. But later you'll use this to do other things. And that's something we'll take a closer look at tomorrow. But go ahead and try that download out if you don't already have a graphing calculator to practice with. But certainly that's a good option for you as well. Okay. So without further ado, let's wrap up the notes here. So we've already done examples 1 and 2. Exercises 1 through 4 we've also done. You may not remember this, but if you do, it was as easy as just stating the dimensions of each matrix. Number 1 was a 4 by 4 matrix. You had 4 rows and you had 4 columns. We also call this a square matrix, which makes sense if you think about the fact that the number of rows and columns are equal to one another. Number 2 was a 1 row by 3 column matrix, while number 3 was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows and 1, 2 columns, 5 by 2. We also did number 4. It was just reading a problem, putting it into a nice 1, 2, 3, 4 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 matrix. So 4 by 5, which they also stated in the directions. All right, let's finish up on page 6. Intro to matrices continued. Elements of a matrix. Okay, so a matrix is a rectangular array of variables or constants in horizontal rows and vertical columns. The values are called elements and are identified by their location in the matrix. The location of an element is written as a subscript with the number of its rows followed by the number of its column. For example, A sub 1, 2, so row 1, column 2, is the element in the first row and the second column of the matrix. And the matrices below, 11 is the value of A sub 1, 2 in the first matrix. The value of B sub 3, 2 in the second matrix is 7. So here it is in the picture, picture of the matrix, I guess. So you've got A sub 1, 2, first row, second column. There it is, 11. And then in the matrix B, in this little next picture depiction, we've got row 3, column 2, simply as the number 7. I also did another example, apparently, where it's the third row and second column, just to highlight that all 3 is that particular value. When we did this way back when, example 1, find the value of C sub 2, 3. Second row, third column is simply 1. And then in this last example, find the value of D sub 5, 4. So the fifth row, fourth column, the value there is 14. So please take a look at the matrix tools that I've offered up. I really do think that the online graphing calculator is a great option, but so are the matrix tools that OneNote has to offer.